What about opening the jaw? Well, for the most part, if we could just turn off these muscles that do the closing, opening would just occur. But there are some muscles that do help out. Two specific groups, and they have to do with the hyoid bone. Now, I don't usually use technical words in these videos. That's more for the flashcards. But the hyoid's so unique that I figure it needs to be utilized. This hyoid sits here, and now you have some muscles that attach from the hyoid up to the jaw. And then you have some that attach from the hyoid and run down to the chest, ribs, collarbone, even way back into the scapula, which is kind of crazy. Now, the cool system here is that the muscles attached to the jaw, if they were to contract, they would just yank the hyoid up and the jaw would move because they'd be pulling at both ends. So they need this hyoid to stay put. So this is where the muscles below it are going to contract and tighten up, and they're going to make the hyoid a stable base that now these muscles above can use to pull the jaw down towards it. All in all, these hyoid muscle groups, they're considered more secondary muscles to the TMJ. Now there's one more muscle we haven't yet really touched on that's a primary muscle, and that one's deeper inside the mouth on both sides. It's very unique in terms of its structure and its job. So it runs closer to midline of the head out towards those heads of the TMJ, those little football-shaped bony prominences. Now more specifically, it has two heads as it does this. One of them is going to attach just below the football on what we'll call the neck of the jaw, and the other one attaches to the disc itself. And because it touches on the disc, that has some ramifications that we'll get to later. You can see that if it pulled, it would try and drag this whole sort of complex forward. And technically it drags it sort of forward and opposite, but since they're going together, they would just drag it forward. This is what helps perform that sliding motion, that top joint that we haven't really addressed yet, where the disc is sliding on the skull. That's that sliding, and these muscles are perfect for producing that. Now it's time to show and not tell, because we need to make these jaws actually move and show how all these muscles work in concert together. So if I was going to open the jaw, the closing muscles are going to have to turn off. Then you're going to have your hyoid muscles start to produce that spinning rotation. And as they get to a point, then you're going to have these other muscles in concert work to pull and create that sliding motion we talked about. So we have our rotating and our sliding. If we're going to have closing, all those upward muscles, the fan and the two that create the sling, they're just going to work together and pull the jaw up, and they're going to do it very powerfully. So we don't want this to slam shut. In order to slow down this motion of closing, it's important to have control in this system, so we're not just banging everything around. So in order for this to happen, we use those muscles that are primarily for sliding, and we now use them to slowly control those joints backwards. It's almost like someone slowly letting out length of a rope so that something can go downwards. If we want to push the jaw forwards and sort of create that jutting caveman look, this is primarily just sliding on the top. You're not really needing that spinning, rolling motion. So it's just the upper joint that is going to be sliding without the swing. So these muscles attached up at the neck underneath the football, once again, are working simultaneously to pull, but at the same time now you have those muscles under the hammock not allowing the jaw to drop open. In order to then pull the jaw backwards, well, let's look. What muscles line up with the direction we want to go? Well, you can see these fanned out muscles, the portion way back in the back just above the ear, that's perfect. That's the direct line we want. So that's going to be doing it, as well as a assistant, these muscles right under the jaw that take this odd angle here, that's going to be helping out. Finally, we have the more complex movement of the chin going off to the side. Now, this is complex because this is the first one where the joints aren't working together in symmetry. They're working asymmetrically to perform this action. If we want to move towards the right, let's look straight down at the head and see which fibers are going that way. We have these two, the ones that attach closer to midline of the head, and they move out towards the jaw. So if these contract, they're going to start to pull it not only forwards, but out in this direction. But how do we assure that the other side doesn't also move? We need that to be, in essence, like a pivot point. Well, we get the muscles here to clamp down and lock this joint into place. In fact, as a bonus, there's a little bit more going on here. You see, the joint here is locked down and keeping put, but it's also kind of spinning. It has to allow that in order for this jaw to move. How that spinning occurs is because those posterior fibers here, they're attaching to the outside of that football and pulling. And then you have these muscles in here attaching to the more medial part of the football, and they're kind of pulling forward. So it's creating that nice spin. So you have one side that's primarily driving into sort of that jutting motion, and the other side not mirroring it, but at the same time locking it down, which is going to create that chin moving to one side.